Welcome to VCR, Vintage Cinema Rewind. We're bringing old movies to new viewers. I'm Blake.
I'm Michael.
And we have Excalibur, the deep dive.
Hey, we're pulling the sword out of the stone. Then we're putting it back in and pulling it out again to prove to everybody that we actually are the king.
Yeah, this is the deep dive, so if you've never seen this movie, go back and watch the primary. Go ahead, you can just.
It's okay. Can I just say that scene to me is really fucking funny?
Yeah, that's one of the best scenes of the movie.
So Arthur is Sir Kay's squire, as he is in the lore, and he's misplaced his older adoptive brother's sword. So at first he's going to steal it from a blacksmith, but then he realizes he can't get away with it. So what does this young man decide to do? He's going to run up the hill and pull the sword out of the stone that no one has been able to... Like, he's going to steal Excalibur, which no one has been able to pull from the stone in, however many years.
Right.
And it works. And instantly he's mobbed by townspeople who are like, whoa.
Yeah. It just kind of slides out, right? Like,
yeah.
It's pretty natural. And then everyone's like, oh, put it back in. What have you done? And he's like, all right. He sticks it back in.
Sorry. And then what's funny, we do see a scene earlier where this, like, very kind of, like, this knight in, like, dark armor is, like, he just won a joust. So he's like, oh, and he almost, like, spits on his gauntlets and tries to lift it. And, like, kudos to that actor. I'm like, man, that thing is really in there.
That's when this movie comes alive, is when Arthur is kind of in his teenage years and his aura is starting to form.
Sure.
That this is where the movie, like, really started to connect with me, because there's a whole prologue before this that we haven't talked about, or we did start to talk about in the deep dive, and then I was like, we can't do this because we're going to be sitting here for 2 hours and 20 minutes.
The shit with Uther Pendragon and Merlin.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest. So I actually like the prologue quite a bit.
So here's the thing, is if you've never seen this movie and you have no idea what to expect, there's kind of this weird... Trying to get into this movie, it's kind of like, okay, I don't hate this, but where's King Arthur? Where's Excalibur? Or why do we need to know all this? It does feel a little unnecessary, although it not in a bad way. I enjoyed it. It just took me a while to get my bearings a little bit in this one.
That's probably fair, right? It's kind of like the equivalent would be like if instead of a prequel trilogy, they had the first 20 minutes were all about Anakin turning into Darth Vader.
It's basically The Hobbit in 20 minutes.
Kinda, yeah. That's actually a better comparison, right? It's kind of like this small-scale little story that just kind of sets the scene.
And it's very self-serious. This is where the movie is at its most serious, is in this opening 20 minutes. And there's a lot of, like, grandstanding and, like, two dudes facing off and battling words.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of like, whoa, like, what have I got myself into here? I don't know if we're going to follow all this.
Right.
And then it kind of transitions into, like, the coming of age story. And that's when this movie kind of, like, finally, like, really breathes some life into it. And you're like, okay, I'm in now. But yeah, I don't hate the opening role. And I think that adding this context into, like, Arthur and all of this backstory into, like, this bigger destiny or narrative arch of this world, I found that really helpful in kind of contextualizing his life.
I particularly enjoyed the prologue for that as reason as well. It's a great introduction to Merlin, the character of Merlin,
right,
and his kind of relationship with Uther.
Yeah.
There's
the world in general.
Right. There's a part of me that's a little like, I almost wanted more of Uther and Merlin, because basically we don't get a lot of time with them, but it seems as though Merlin is kind of like this ageless, immortal being.
Yeah. He's Gandalf.
He's Gandalf, essentially. And he's sort of attached himself to Uther, but, and he's kind of influencing Uther and, like, trying to steer him in this direction towards, like, founding Camelot. Unfortunately for him, Uther is insane. He's a total prick, right? So I particularly enjoyed watching Merlin, like, slowly just lose patience with this guy over that 20 minutes, to the point where he almost kind of leads him to his own death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and, like, even Merlin can be wrong every once in a while, and so he learns some lessons in this first act. I really like, too, the way that this movie sets up father and son and, like, their similarities, as well, and kind of, how things come full circle at some points. Like, there's plot threads about these two that, come up later on in the film, right?
Right. Well, I kind of like the portrayal. Merlin has a great line where when he comes to collect little baby Arthur, he has this great line where he's kind of admonishing Uther, and he basically just says, "You betrayed the Duke, you stole his wife, you took his castle. Now only fools trust you. Now only a fool would. You're not the one, Uther."
Right.
And I kind of like that in the idea that's like, oh, Uther is kind of like, to me, I'm like, he's almost like the failed chosen one.
Yeah.
It's like he could have been the guy, but now it's up to the next generation to get us out of this mess.
Yeah, and that comes up like time and time again in these types of stories. Like Dune is another one, I think, that is very, there's a lot of prophecy involved, and who's going to be that prime candidate to get everybody together, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it is kind of neat how that all plays out with Uther and Merlin.
Right.
And it does feel somewhat unexpected in a sense because of how Uther is built up.
Sure.
And so not knowing the lore at all, like there is kind of this twist to this story that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah. You said something earlier that I want to touch on, the idea that even Merlin can be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be a dork for a second. In the mythology, it varies by accounts, but Merlin's backstory is essentially that his father was a demon, but his mother was a mortal woman. So it's like an incubus, basically, impregnated his mother and gave birth to him. But then he was baptized when he was born. So as a result of that, Merlin has like this demonic heritage, which basically what comes up a lot in the myths is that Merlin basically can see the future.
Yeah, and that's touched on in this movie as well.
Right. So there's this great moment in Thomas Mallory's Le Morte d'Arthur, which is considered one of the definitive texts, where later on in this movie, Merlin gets betrayed by Morgana. In that version, he gets betrayed by a woman named Nimue, and he's talking to Arthur about it. He's like, yeah, I'm going to teach her spells, and then she's going to turn against me, and I'm going to be trapped in stone forever. And Arthur is straight up like, well...
Don't?
Yeah, he's like, well, I think...
How about you not?
Yeah, he's basically like, well, surely with your knowledge of the future, you could just not do that.
Yeah.
And I remember this vividly. I read this like in a book like 13 years ago. Merlin just says, that is not so, and then just drops the conversation. So it's almost kind of like the vibe I got from that, and then this movie, it's like, okay, so Merlin can see the future, but in some ways he's almost helpless to it.
Right.
It's kind of like Dr. Manhattan in Watchmen, right? Where he has that great line in the comic where he's like, we're all puppets, like I can just see the strings.
Right.
So
yeah, and that's really funny that you bring it back to that. I wonder why Zack Snyder wanted to do that movie.
Yeah, all roads lead back to Zack Snyder. So hey.
I was gonna say all roads lead back to King Arthur, but
well, I guess either or, right? So anyway, should we talk about the larger going back to Merlin? And so yes, in the mythology, he can see the future. He clearly knows everything. What I found interesting about his portrayal in this movie is that there are several moments when he's clearly baffled by what he just saw. So when Uther actually gets killed and shoves the sword into the stone, there's a great shot where Merlin, who's carrying little baby Arthur, spins around and his mouth hangs agape. He's like, "What?"
Right.
Or there's other moments where Arthur might have killed Lancelot and broken Excalibur, and Merlin's just like, oh my god. You see, he's just standing there, and he's almost you can see in his face, oh my god, all this work has been undone.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
He's like, you fool!
Yeah.
It's over!
Basically. So, yeah, kind of the vibe I was getting from Merlin sometimes is sort of he almost kind of reminded me of Anthony Hopkins' portrayal of Abraham Van Helsing in the Dracula movie,
nice.
In the sense that a brilliant eccentric who's maybe not as brilliant as he thinks he is.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the vibe I arrived at the end.
Yeah. He's kind of, and again, he's kind of goofball. He's a little clumsy, but he's Merlin.
Yeah, there's that great moment where Lancelot is blocking the robe, and Arthur turns to him for what to do, and Merlin's he's handsome and quick, and then he catches a fish with his bare hands, clearly just not paying attention to what's in front of him.
Is the Chrome Dome canon or where's that?
No,
okay.
I don't know what that is. His little. So it's funny. My partner said, "Oh, we can get one of those for you now." I have no idea what that's supposed to be.
Okay.
It works though. It's like a
Yeah. It's
skull
fun.
cap
I like
kind
it.
of thing. It's
I'm-
like it's the first tinfoil hat.
Yeah, it is. He doesn't want anybody reading his mind. So
Yeah, basically.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I this is a hard movie to narratively get through. I really don't know where to go next.
I feel like we should apologize because this episode's going to be a mess because there's a lot that happens in this movie.
Yeah.
And we're just going to bounce around.
Yeah, this is tough. I think okay, so highlight for me. One of the first sieges of the movie when Arthur is fighting Uryans, the guy who only speaks and screams.
Yeah. We
that
call
is-
him Uryans the Silent.
Yeah. He that is honestly not only one of the highlights of the movie for me, I think that's one of the best sieges I've ever seen in film.
It actually, I will say, the production value of this movie, it looks great.
Incredible. It looks
Yeah.
fantastic.
Like the sieges, even like that first scene where it's like we're in the woods and it's dark and there's all these guys
Yeah.
like on horseback just cleaving each other with swords and axes. I'm like, this looks great. Like this looks amazing.
Yeah,
Right?
Absolutely.
So anyways, yeah, that scene in particular, great. So Arthur rides on, and by the way, he's learned he's king less than 12 hours ago, and he's rolling with it.
Yeah.
He's climbing up ladders, knocking over ladders.
It just, to me, like, not only is this shot extremely beautifully, it also feels very realistic.
Yeah.
Like, I've
yeah.
never quite seen a siege put on screen this way before. It's shot, like, on location at a real castle in England. Like, there's a lot to appreciate about it. And it's like, oh, okay, so now going forward, this is kind of the benchmark to me.
Right.
For cool siege scenes.
Another point on that is it is very epic, but like what I noticed about it on this viewing is that it also feels a little quaint in the sense that like there's a scene early on where like the Duke of Cornwall is like shouting down at Uther and his men, and it looks like there's 20 guys down there. And for me, I'm like, it actually made it kind of like more epic or more realistic though, because I'm like,
Right.
It's not like a Return of the King where you've got these big sweeping CG shots of like hundreds and hundreds of orcs. It's like, oh yeah, like it's Britain, like it's
And, like, 2 or 1,000 years or 1,500 years ago.
yeah, it's Britain 1,500 years ago.
There's just 20 dudes.
There's 20 dudes fighting, right? That's it, So I actually thought that really lended some credibility to what we were seeing.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. It's, and into that, oh, I did want to shout out that's Cahir Castle, which is a very well preserved Irish castle that you can go visit.
Oh, cool.
But so into him getting knighted in the lake, this is maybe the first like small but big letdowns for me. And this is movie brain.
Okay.
I thought that the shot of him being knighted and essentially baptized in the moat could have been cooler. Just could have been a cooler shot.
Oh, really?
Just kind of lame.
Are you talking about like when you see it's almost like a high shot where he's just squatting down in the
Well, and there's like the Uther. He gives Uryans the sword. And he's like, okay, knight me then. I'm not a knight.
So I actually, there was a part of me that's like, this is kind of dumb. Another part of me is like, no, this is actually really cool.
It's cool, but I wish that the shot maybe hung a little bit longer. Like maybe there was like just it just the tension didn't quite it wasn't stretched as long as it needed.
You
to
felt
be.
like they left some tension on
Yeah.
the floor.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. I can kind of get behind that.
Yeah.
I didn't really feel that way, but I can see where you're coming from. By the way, Patrick Stewart's character, I forget his name, but that guy, Patrick Stewart, like he sees this dumpy little kid pull the sword from the stone, and he is instantly ride or die for him.
Yeah.
Right? Literally the next day, his friends are storming his castle to kill him because he's backing this child, and I'm like, man, what a way to go! Like,
Actually, on that note, I think this is the time that I want to talk about Nigel Terry's performance as Arthur.
Arthur, right? So okay, well, I'll just say,
Yeah.
I thought it was serviceable, but not great.
Yeah. Where I'm at is I think that I needed more charisma. Like he's just kind of missing maybe a little bit of an it factor that I wanted out of this character.
Well, and I mean, part of it is the movie doesn't solely focus on him.
Right.
It focuses on a bunch of different characters.
Yep.
But I get what you mean. It's kind of like the complaint I had about Michael Corleone, at least in the first half of the first Godfather, where I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. Like, what does he want? What is he doing? It's sort of like Arthur gets swept up in all this, and then he sort of just rolls with it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like I get what you mean. I never quite felt like, to me, I felt like he was very good as like this like put upon young farm boy.
Yeah.
But later on when he's king, I'm like, I don't know that I buy it.
I don't know why people want to follow this guy.
Right.
He doesn't have that factor, because to me, to be this nobody who becomes a king, you have to have an it factor too. And I'm not saying, I don't even think there's anybody else directly in this movie that I would just slide into him. Like Lancelot's a very charismatic character, but he doesn't have like the performance of Lancelot, I think, is really good.
Yeah, he was one of the better ones.
But I don't think that even he quite had King Arthur in him.
He didn't have the sauce, as the kids say.
Yeah, I don't know,
Yeah.
and I don't know who I would put in that role. Like, I don't know back then, I don't know now who exactly would fit that in my mind.
Well, it would be a tough performance because you have to play a naive young farm boy, and then you also have to play the king. Then you also have to play like the king in his later years as he's ailing.
Right.
And then you have to play that second guy again. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a bad performance, but I agree. It wasn't.
It just felt like slight miscasting.
A little bit. Yeah, like even I liked him as the farm boy, but even then I'm like, what are you, like 30? Like, you know?
Well, and I mean, that's a tough nut to like crack, because honestly, like, I get what they were doing. They wanted this performance throughout the movie, right? They wanted you to attach yourself to him. It's like Barry Lyndon, right? Like,
Yeah.
And I was going to compare this movie to Barry Lyndon at some point as well. In I didn't want to say it in the primer, but that this is where, you know, the contrast between that and this movie. Barry Lyndon has this overarching narrative about fate and destiny. And you
Rising
can feel
and falling, yeah.
and you can feel that throughout the movie. Whereas this one, it doesn't quite come together like that, and it's just because it wants to tell the story of Arthur and all of these characters, and it's trying to get through as much as possible, as quick as possible.
Yeah, and kind of like what I said a moment ago, it's not. There's a nice 20 to 30 minute stretch halfway through this movie where Arthur just doesn't appear.
Yeah,
where we're kind of following Percival along on his quest for the Grail.
Yeah, that's in like the third act or the seventh act in the movie. No, fifth.
Can I just say that, like, okay, the Knights of the Round Table hunting down the Holy Grail, like, okay, you can't tell this story without the Grail quest. That's arguably like the defining moment of the whole Arthurian cycle.
Yeah.
It was probably my least favorite part of this movie.
So what's really funny,
Okay.
Jess and I not being Arthur heads, while we were watching it, Jess was like, I could have done without this whole Grail arc. And in my notes, what I wrote was, you know, I didn't completely hate the second act, but the Grail just feels a little too late to be kind of discussed in this movie. Like, you know, if you wanted to get into the Grail bits, like maybe there's some like epic journey that Merlin wanted somebody to go on in the first act. Or something.
Yeah, that is. I'm glad you brought that up, because so Arthur kind of he basically like stabs Excalibur back into the sword, or basically like abandons it, and by doing so he sort of like wounded the land and wounded himself, because the king is the land and the land is the king, blah fucking blah. Anyway, and then we see him in his bedchambers, and he's very clearly like ill, like ailing,
right?
And he says, the only thing that'll cure me is the Holy Grail. And again, part of me is like, what? Excuse me, the what? Because it's the first time it's mentioned in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Right? Now, granted, there's a part of me that's like, all right, whatever. Like, I know what the Grail is. Most people know what the Grail is. But you're right. It's something that they should have introduced earlier. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm not claiming to be a script doctor here, but like, maybe like somebody gets bonked on the head earlier and they see like a vision of the Grail, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Or even Merlin just mentioning like the Grail or something.
To Uther, even in the first act.
Yeah.
Like, just, you know, plant that seed. And
because you're right, it does kind of come right the fuck out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And now, granted, there's parts I like about that sequence in terms of like how.
It feels like a horror movie.
Yeah, like there's a great scene where he finds one of his comrades, and it's almost like a Dark Souls level where like it's like a skull and a helm, and like I like the contrast of how all the armor is like bright and shiny and Camelot is all green. Now we're suddenly like in a bog, and like Percival, like his armor is all like rusted and dirty. And
one of the coolest effects of this entire movie is, I believe, during that sequence, there's a body that's been left for dead, like one of the knights, and a bird comes and like starts pecking away at the eye.
Yeah.
And that is the most effective corpse I've ever seen. Like, I've never quite seen a body that's been half deteriorated like that, and a bird coming up and eating at the eye, because it
Right.
was a real sheep's eye, and sheep's like whatever. It was like a skull, but then there's sheep whatever underneath of
Like-
it. So it's very realistic, and it's
Yeah.
like and that's adds to that horror element or vibe to this part of the movie.
Yeah. I mean, it's fair to say the best part of this movie is just the vibes.
Yeah.
Like the visuals, the scenery.
Yep.
Part of the problem I had with that sequence in particular is, one, what the fuck is the Grail? What are you even talking about? Second of all, like, I never really cared much for Percival as a character.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
He shows up, and I really like Lancelot, and I really like Lancelot's portrayal in this movie.
Yeah, he's
and
great.
I think the actor really nails the idea of Lancelot, and what John Boorman wanted out of that character.
Well, even just you think like Prince Charming knight figure, and that's him, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
He embodies it fully.
Yeah, and so him embracing this kind of like thief who, he sees him and he's like, oh, I could turn this kid around, kind of thing. Like, even that I kind of embraced.
It
but
happens so quickly, though.
It does happen too quickly, and I think that's one of the points of this movie where I was saying this movie is both too short and too long.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, I think that this movie is far too long. The last 40 minutes of this movie, I think you cut it. I think you don't even get into the Grail in this film.
Yeah.
And if this movie does really well, you make a second film. It's about the Grail. Make this movie the rise of Arthur into the forming of the Knights of the Round Table.
Yeah.
You ended at that point. You ended this movie an hour 40 in. Maybe you had 20 minutes of extra content into this movie.
Sure.
And just pad out some of the plots, because things move so quickly from A to B. You've got a solid 2-hour movie in here. And we don't get into all the other stuff that happens in the last, what's the third act of the movie. But again, like you said,
It's like the 6th, 7th, and 8th act.
Exactly.
I will agree that, like, I think I like this movie a lot more than you did.
Yeah.
I will say the last 40 minutes, I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Now, granted, there's a lot of stuff to like in there, but just,
Yeah.
You're right. It's
hard to stay as energetic about this movie, and it's hard to stay as focused. Like, honestly, if you had to tell me without looking at my notes or the internet what happens, or give you a plot summary of the last 40 minutes, I genuinely couldn't do that after watching this movie like 3 days ago.
Oh, really? Okay. I mean, you're right. Like, this is part of the reason why this movie's a beautiful mess. Even the whole conception of Mordred, right? Like, Morgana's essentially like, it almost feels like, she betrays Merlin, and then she's basically like, I'm going to sire a child with my half brother, and you're like, what?
Yeah,
and it happens in like like you could blink and miss it. She basically just runs to his bed, and she's doing all her like magic shit. She's just like, love me, and like he thinks it's Guinevere, so then they fuck, and then and then she just kind of like runs cackling from his bedroom. I'm barely exaggerating. That's kind of what happens.
Yeah, again, very incoherent. I honestly didn't know what that character wanted, or what her her desire was.
I liked Mordred as a character, like as a villain.
Yeah,
I would have liked more from him.
So
like,
I really liked Mordred in the final act. Like, adult Mordred, I found really cool. And part of the reason why I really liked him is because, obviously Stephen King writing the Dark Tower series,
right, which draws very, very heavily from the Arthurian mythos.
Yeah, and even probably from this movie a little bit. But Mordred is an important character from the Dark Tower series as well. That's obviously, like you said, inspired by this Mordred or a Mordred.
Yeah, I liked the fit, like the golden armor, and like his kind of like pouty exterior. Like, there's a great moment where he finally meets Arthur, and he demands Camelot, and Arthur says something to the effect of like, all I can give you is my love, and Mordred's like, that's the one thing you have that I don't want.
Yeah, I thought Mordred was great. I thought the performance was really cool, and again, another person that I thought was really well cast. But yeah, I started to get back into this movie at that point in time. Like, I actually really appreciated that part of the final act of this movie, the final 40 minutes.
The grand finale,
But it's tough as well setting up a villain in like the final act of a movie. that hasn't been prevalent up to this point.
I didn't hate it because to me, I always thought Morgana was sort of the final villain, and he's sort of like an extension of her.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean,
it just didn't have room to breathe, is what
Yeah.
it comes down to, right? Like, this movie is too short in the sense that it's doing so much that, like, at no point in time did it like let me simmer with any ideas or any plot points enough to like really gravitate towards anything, to like really become attached to something.
And yet at the same time, there are some like, okay, so for instance, going back to the whole Grail quest thing, so Percival's out and about. He sort of has some sort of a vision where he sees the Grail. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
there it is. But then he like runs away and like vaults over this dream moat or whatever it is. And then later on, he sees one of his former friends, and he's just like, who gets killed by Mordred. And he's just like, Percival's like, I saw the Grail, but I wasn't strong enough. And then his friend's like, but you gotta get the Grail, man. And then like literally it's like he trips, falls, and there it is.
Yeah. There's a few things in this movie where, as Jess and I were watching, we were like, we could have just cut this. We didn't need to do this again.
Yeah, like so the ending, I think that's the most egregious example. So Arthur is killed by Mordred, fatally wounded by Mordred, and he gives Excalibur to Percival and says like, you have to return it to the Lady of the Lake. So then Percival goes off, is about to throw it to the lake, pauses, goes back to Arthur.
Yeah,
like, I couldn't do it. And Arthur,
that's the prime example.
And I'm like, Arthur's like, what the fuck, man? Just do it. And I'm like, and even me, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, just do it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
why is this necessary?
Yeah.
Why do you have to go, like, literally, what value does that add to the plot of this movie?
We could have had more. The only thing I could think is like maybe like something fucked up and they had to reshoot it, but they couldn't work with the footage. I don't know, but like, you know, you think if there were millions of dollars on the line, they would have figured it out. But like,
right.
Yeah, so it's something like that, or like that other knight getting killed by Mordred. I'm like, I don't like. What are we? Just get the Grail, man.
Yeah,
just get it. And then it's funny, he gets the Grail, and like there's shockingly little fanfare about it. Like Arthur takes one sip from it, and he's basically just like, oh, that's good shit. And then in the next scene, he's fine. Like,
yeah.
So yeah, there are some just weird decisions in the second half where you're like, what is this, right? Like,
right.
I feel like someone has probably already done a fan cut where they just remove those two scenes I mentioned, and it's like, there, we did it.
Well, and even on that note, like, I would be super interested in, you know, the 50th anniversary. We're 5 years away from that. I would be interested in seeing what the original 3-hour cut of this movie was, because there is, when this movie was first cut, it was over 3 hours.
That makes sense.
And the studio was like, absolutely not. And I genuinely think that might help in kind of making this a more coherent plot. There's also a short version of this movie that's like an hour. I think it's just under 2 hours.
Really?
And it makes it PG-13.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are those cuts available anywhere?
Yeah, the PG-13 cut, like the long cut isn't available, right? But the shorter version, I don't know where you can find it, but it used to play on TV all the time.
Okay, interesting. Yeah,
it just cuts out a lot of the sex and violence, basically.
Oh, but that's the best part. I think you know, an hour 40 is when we're on. Going back to Percival for a second, it's not that he's a bad character. It's just he shows up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He basically follows Lancelot back to Camelot on foot for 20 days.
Yeah.
Which is funny to me. He's like, here, take my saddle. And then Percival's like, I'll run. And he's like, it's 20 days ride away.
And then we cut to them there. And Jess is like, wow, he just ran for 20 days.
Yeah, Sarah said, she's like, do you think at any point during those 20 days he thought to himself, I should have just gotten the saddle? And like, it's not a bad... I don't hate the idea of like a spirited young man who like attaches himself to Lancelot, and you know, he seems like spirited. I'm gonna say it again, right? Like, by the way, there's a really funny scene where he arrives at Camelot. They tell him to go to the kitchens. They're just like, follow your nose, and then he bumps into Merlin while Merlin is like in this little sectioned off area with a bunch of like inventors but also entertainers, and I was like, what is this? Like, is this Santa's workshop? Like, and he bumps into Merlin and he's like, do you know where the kitchens are? He's like, do I know where the kitchens are? I built this whole castle. So that's another scene that probably could have been cut, but whatever. So, and then when they're doing their whole trial by combat for Guinevere's honor. None of Lancelot's not there. Nobody else is stepping up, and he's just like, shit, I'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, I like that.
Yeah.
I like stuff like that. I didn't find Percival all that offensive. It just, again, could have maybe used some.
No, not offensive at all. It's just, it's a little like, it's too little, too late. Like,
Yeah.
you need to give me more of this character. Like,
Right.
even like his whole thing with Lancelot too. Like, give me more of that. Like, maybe they bond a little.
Mhm.
I kind of, I do, performance wise, like seeing him as a spirited young kid, and then seeing him as like this bearded wretch who's like been alone for 10 years looking for this fucking grail, like that was kind of effective.
Yeah.
But yeah, how did you feel about Merlin coming back?
I'm gonna be completely honest. In the last 40 minutes, at some point, I just kind of checked out of this movie.
Okay, fair
So
enough.
I didn't care.
You were just like, oh, it's Merlin. Yeah, fair enough.
What I liked about Merlin, there was one scene where he's talking to Arthur up in the castle, and he's telling Arthur that he's going to be leaving, and it's a very Lord of the Rings coded, like,
Yeah,
this is a time of men now kind of thing.
I gotta get the fuck out of here, Arthur.
And Merlin has this quote of like, no, there. Arthur's like, and you, old friend, will I see you again? And Merlin says, no, there are other worlds. This one is done with me. Really like that. Really like the implications of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That felt very, again, very Stephen King coded. I just there's something cool about that, and I think that's something that even like Brandon Sanderson has done in his novels, where there's a reoccurring character that
just hops from world to world,
and from story to story, and just wants to be a part. Like, there's something to be said about a character in a story who's just there to observe.
Yeah, and that's often what Merlin's doing. He's just observing, or like he'll show up when he's needed, and then he just kind of fucks off. Or even there's kind of a cute scene with him and Arthur where he's just like, Merlin, what do I do? And he's like, well, you're the king, and he's like, but I don't know how to be king. And he's like, well, really? You pulled the sword from the stone? Like, I couldn't have done that. And then he's like, and then Arthur thinks about it. He's like, we should regroup with Sir Kay and the others. And then Merlin's like, yeah, good. Let's do that. And they start running off. Like, I like the idea. It's sort of Merlin being like, hey, man, it's your story. Like, what do you want to do?
I'm just here to observe.
Yeah. I'll help out if I feel like it. But even like during the scenes with the Knights of the Round Table, Merlin is just skulking in the distance.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes Arthur will say something and Merlin will say something really creepy.
Right.
And I'm just like, ugh.
Well, and there's implications in this movie that Merlin every once in a while might push somebody or something in a direction.
Sure. Yeah, he's certainly like scheming.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of get what you mean. It's sort of, he's often, sort of the implication is that maybe Merlin's not fully human.
Right.
And I did kind of like the implication that like he, especially when it comes to like love and lust, he doesn't really understand everything about the human condition.
Yeah.
Like, I actually thought Morgana had a great moment where she's kind of chiding him for being attracted to her. Also, like, ew, like he knew her when she was a little girl. But like, she's like, oh, or maybe your heart thunders for something you've never had. And I was like, oh, Merlin, the 700-year-old virgin. But I digress. To me, Merlin was the best part of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, performance-wise, I would agree. Yeah.
Maybe a better comparison for Merlin is that he's almost like an editor, like for a story. That's why he's often baffled by the decisions people make. Like, he's clearly trying to push things along in a certain direction, but like, again, I like the implication that he doesn't fully understand people. So that's why he seems so confused sometimes.
Yeah.
Where he's like, what?
Well, and I like, he doesn't push people either necessarily. Like, when Arthur first lays eyes on Guinevere, he kind of says to her, like, hey, man, I've done this before. This doesn't work out well for anybody.
Yeah.
This woman is going to fall in love with somebody else. There's plenty of other fish in the sea. And Arthur's like, no, I want that one. And he's like, all right,
yeah,
I'm telling you, this isn't going to work out well. And he's like, and he just lets it happen kind of thing, right?
Right. And then later on, like during that rooftop scene, Arthur just very tentatively, like, he's like, well, you did try to warn me. And Merlin's just kind of like, eh. Like, he just kind of shrugs like, yeah, I know.
Yeah. What did you think about Merlin coming back?
I thought it was a little stupid, but I was kind of here for it. that's the great moment where Arthur sees him and Merlin straight up says, like, your love brought me back. And Merlin's like, and Arthur's like, oh, Merlin, it's like a dream. And then he has that great moment where he's like, a dream to some, a nightmare to others. And he T-poses and then like he fades away.
Right.
And I was just like, how funny would it have been if he's like, a dream to some, a nightmare to others, and then just lowered his hands and walked away.
Nice.
I thought that would have been funny. And
Yeah,
then it was kind of cool seeing him come back to get revenge on Morgan Le Fay,
Mhm.
and then just sort of fade off into the distance. But
Yeah,
that
he pulls his Luke Skywalker in the 8th movie. I don't know.
Sure, yeah. So less said about that.
See,
the
all
better.
all stories go back to like there's like 3 stories.
There's only 3. All right, everybody, just relax,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to think. We covered a lot. Lancelot and Guinevere. I did appreciate Lancelot coming back to sort of atone for what he did.
I like Old Man Lancelot. I'm into that.
It was pretty funny. I also like that when he comes back, he's like, I do kind of like when we do see him, he's sort of like a mad preacher and talking.
He's like the Moses.
Sorta. Moses, if Moses were a nihilist, like it's funny. They're in this village and like there's a bunch of dead kids and the land is sick and
Yeah.
Lancelot is screaming about how the knights abandoned them and how we're all gonna die. And I'm like, Lancelot, read the room. But
yeah, it's something else.
I also like when he comes back, he's sort of just like, he's just picking up whatever weapon he can find on the ground and is just bonking people over the head with it. So
Yeah, very charismatic performance from him. I believed this character. I believe this character was kind of like like he's the man and he just wants to find somebody to follow.
yeah, and by the way, that's what he is in the mythology too. He's straight up the best knight in the world.
Yeah.
Nobody touches Lancelot.
Except for Arthur.
That one time, sorta. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
And Guinevere.
Yeah, I would have maybe liked a little more Guinevere too.
Are Guinevere and Lancelot hot for each other in the stories?
Oh yeah, that's one of the biggest motifs.
Really?
Like, yeah, that's straight up one of the reasons why Camelot falls is because they were bumping uglies behind the scenes.
Huh. So the story of Camelot is a story of decay as well. Like this
essentially, like death, rejuvenation, rebirth. What's interesting is that in the mythology, and again, it can vary based on versions, but
yeah, because there's a lot of versions of Arthur.
Right. So in Thomas Malory's version, for instance, which this movie draws heavily from, Lancelot has a similar thing where he's staying at some enchanted castle, and this woman appears to him in the form of Guinevere, and he has sex with her. Then she gives birth to this knight named Galahad, who's sort
I've
of
heard
like
Galahad.
yeah, you've heard of Galahad. So again, Galahad sort of mirrors Arthur in the sense that like he has sort of this weird conception, and Galahad is essentially who Lancelot should have been. Like he's also the greatest knight in the world, but he's fully chaste. Like he has no sexual compunctions whatsoever. He doesn't sleep with his best friend's wife, which is kind of a flex, I guess. He's the one who actually finds the Grail in most versions of the myth, I believe.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So obviously they couldn't do Galahad in this movie with this time frame, but yeah. So again, it is sort of, I'm going to quote George Lucas, it's like poetry, it rhymes, right? Like Uther has this thing, gives birth to Arthur, who's a better man. Lancelot has this thing, gives birth to Galahad, who's a better man than he is.
Right. You know what I love about this kind of storytelling that I'm just thinking about now is this is not Hollywood. This is very like old kind of stories where it's like everybody's imperfect and everyone kind of sucks a little bit and has their faults.
Yeah.
But if we kind of come together, then we can be better.
Yeah.
And that's really not what Hollywood does anymore.
No, maybe not American cinema. Well, American fiction is very individualistic.
Yeah.
Like Lone Man on the Frontier, whereas, especially when these stories are being written like 1,000 more years ago, it's very much like, hey, if we don't stick together, we are all going to die.
Yeah.
So let's do our best, okay, guys?
Yeah, I really like that. I really like that type of storytelling, and I really like the fact that these are all imperfect people. That's not what I was expecting from King Arthur. Honestly, I thought King Arthur was a story of a man who came from nothing, who becomes this great glorious figure that
Right.
everyone wants to follow and be a part of.
Right.
And that's really not the case at all.
No, he makes mistakes, sort of. Like, yeah, there is one scene with him and Guinevere where, basically Sir Gawain has challenged her honor,
Mhm.
and Arthur has basically said, I can't be your champion because I'm the king. I have to be the judge.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's the law. And it's sort of implied, I'm like, is this the reason why Guinevere is drawn to Lancelot? Because Arthur's not fully available as a husband? Maybe. I don't know. I would have liked to a little bit more of them.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree.
What does their marriage actually look like? Because,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get into a whole history lesson, but consider that when these stories were being written, like, marriages were essentially just alliances, and that there was a grand tradition of, like, okay, you had your husband, but then you had your courtly love paramour on the side, right?
Right.
But you still brought down Camelot, so thanks for that.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. And these stories would have been written for the kings and the kingdoms of that era too,
Essentially, yeah. So yeah, to answer your original question, like, I say that's probably one of Lancelot's most defining traits is that he fucks his best friend's wife. So stay away from that, Lancelot.
That's something. That we're just telling stories about cucking each other's wives 1,500 years ago.
Yeah, maybe it was like one of those things where, like, they were having sex, but Arthur got to sit in, like, the cuck chair and watch. Now that's a version I would actually like to see.
Oh, Jesus. I don't have too much else I wanted to talk about the movie itself. What else? Do you have anything else that you want to hit on?
I think we touched on the main beats. I did enjoy the final showdown between Arthur and Mordred, especially for how brief it was. Arthur's straight up like, I have to face my son, and then they instantly just stab each other.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, you did it. So anyway, yeah, this movie, we'll talk about I'm jumping ahead a bit, but yeah, effects and filming. I'm passing it off to you.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously, you've already mentioned sequels, prequels, and reboots. The fact that, this is based on what's considered like the most famous or the most well-known version of this, Le Morte d'Arthur, which by Sir Thomas Malory. I didn't know that, and I've never read that. Did you read that, or did you guys go through that then?
I read parts of it for university. I was supposed to read the whole thing, but I read parts of it.
Yeah, I mean, I find that really cool. Like, I do appreciate history and historical fiction, so I like when we're telling these stories again, because it's kind of like a refresher of, like, humanity's been around for a while. It's not just us. We're specks on the scale of humanity.
Yeah, nothing really changes.
Yeah, and nothing really changes. Exactly what you're saying. And we just are constantly making the same mistakes, right? I don't know if there's any other... I kind of wish that this movie did have two parts to it, and wish that it had gotten the Godfather Part 1 and Godfather Part 2 treatment.
I think 2 parts would have been nice. I was thinking a trilogy, but no, we could have done this good in 2 movies.
I think we could have done this really well in 2 movies. I don't know. Are there any other, like, big prominent King Arthur movies that you've seen before?
I mean, the most recent one I think that everybody has heard of is The Green Knight. I mean, there was Quest for Camelot, the animated movie from when we were kids.
Monty Python's Holy Grail, which is...
Yeah, that's true.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, actually, arguably the best interpretation. I'm sure there's a lot of them. Like,
Yeah, I'm just looking at the list, because, I mean, it is public domain, so...
Sure, well, even, like, you can see echoes of it. Like, even, like, in Star Wars, the Jedi Order is almost kind of a pseudo Knights of the Round Table. In Elden Ring, we have Roundtable Hold, where all the heroes gather to, like, share information. So, like, yeah, it's, it's a looming presence in our storytelling.
Yeah, for sure. So, effects and filming... like I said in the primer, this was originally intended to be an adaptation of Lord of the Rings, so
right.
A lot of the set design actually had been designed for a Lord of the Rings film. So that's really cool, and I definitely felt the inspiration throughout this movie being inspired by Lord of the Rings as well as the King Arthur narrative, which, again, as someone who is a big fan of those series, really appreciated that. Boorman was considering casting a lot of different people in the role of Merlin.
Okay.
And a lot of them were just, like, fan castings by himself that were never going to be realistic.
Okay.
But there was one consideration that I was like, I need to see this version. He thought about casting Klaus Kinski as Merlin.
No.
That would have been insane.
Yeah.
That would have been wild.
This would have been a very different movie.
Yeah, I kind of wish that we got to see it, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like morbidly curious what that would have looked like.
There would have been less whimsical and more just like pure insanity.
Yeah. Merlin, man, you gotta calm down.
Just stab that guy.
Yeah.
So Arthur's accent in this movie, Nigel Terry, he took on a West Country accent because Arthur Cornwall was in kind of West England. The whole time we were watching this movie, I was like, where's that accent from? Like I said that to Jess. I was like, this accent is very unique. I don't know if I've heard this accent in a movie before. It's very like it's a little more Irish than I was expecting King Arthur to sound.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first like 10 minutes of his introduction to this, I really kind of, it almost took me out of this movie. It was so distinct.
I almost felt there were times when I was like, is this a fake accent? Like, what is this? But yeah, no, very good.
So Boorman, I talked about the 3-hour version where a lot of scenes got cut. So there's a lot of scenes, if you watch the original trailer for this, there's a lot of scenes in the trailer that aren't actually in the movie.
Okay.
One of the biggest ones being when Lancelot saves Guinevere from a forest bandit.
Oh, yeah, that did not happen in this movie.
Yeah, and just thinking about that, even just from a storytelling perspective, I kind of wonder if the reason why it was cut is because there was just like more plot points that would have just made this even more bloated. Like instead of Boorman maybe expanding on different parts of the movie, rather it was just like, well, and then this happened and then that happened, and it didn't really like actually add to the overall narrative of the film.
Yeah, I don't know. Like thinking about that now, just off the top of my head, I'm like, you know, it's kind of like you said, this movie is too long, but also too short. Like, you know, like Lancelot and Guinevere basically lock eyes and they're just in love instantly.
Yeah.
They really only have one or two real conversations before they have naked sex in the woods, which does happen.
Yeah. And what a filming experience that was, because they did that out there and it was very buggy and wet. And cold.
I was gonna say, like, this must have been a nightmare to film. Like, imagine being in like 80 pounds of armor, like trudging through like waist high mud.
Yeah.
All right, boys, let's do it again.
In general, this was a nightmare to film, is my understanding. Like, because it rained the literal entire time that they were recording. Their original cinematographer had a mental breakdown because they had to redo one of the sieges twice, or one of the epic battles twice, because their camera cutting out on them. But the cameraman, one of my favorite scenes, or one of the most effective effects in this movie, one of the most effective effects of this movie,
it's catching,
is when, like I said, when he's questing for the Holy Grail, and there's the shot of the crow eating the eye.
Yeah.
They had a cameraman who had a camera running for 3 days straight, trying to get a bird to eat that. So, yeah.
Hey, and what a shot it was.
What a shot. Honestly, that's probably the shot that's going to stick with me the longest of this movie.
I would be inclined to agree. I would hate to be that freaking cameraman, though. Like, just, come on, eat it.
The Morgana birth scene, real pregnant lady. I was watching it and I was like, oh, like that looks like a real person.
And by the way, what a childbirth scene that was. Like, there's dudes in black robes, there's thunder everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, as someone who's slightly afraid to be a father someday, I'm like, this is what I'm going to be picturing in my head.
Nice. Yeah, so apparently Helen Mirren had her head up through a hole in the table, and then they had the other person, like the actual pregnant lady there, and they kind of like spliced it in a way that it looked like it was
See, this is when filmmakers were like real artists.
Yeah.
They had to just be like, all right, we're going to cut a hole here. Helen, you stick your head up here. Like, lady, we're going to put your head under some blankets.
Yeah.
They're all smoking cigars and doing coke. Like,
so legacy of this movie, I'm kind of surprised this movie was nominated for 1 Oscar. Do you know what Oscar that would have been?
Cinematography?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, what else?
Yeah. So here's the thing is I'll pitch you one other award that I would have set this for, and that's costume design.
Yeah, no, you can see how this probably influenced a lot of future fantasy going forward.
Well,
like, even
I don't know if we've seen a movie with better armor.
No, the armor in particular looks great.
Yeah.
The sound design too, like the clanking, the screeching.
I was kind of honestly surprised that it didn't get a little bit more awards recognition back then. But also, that's also kind of just how things worked back then. Like a movie, a fantasy film, a sci-fi film doesn't typically get awarded back in the 80s.
Especially not a rock and roll sci-fi film.
That's like the last 15 years. Things have kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I if it was me, I think honestly, best costume design, this should have even won. Like, I was looking back at the movies that year. And Raiders of the Lost Ark won a few different awards that this probably could have won instead. Like best visual effects, Raiders of the Lost Ark won and deserved. But Chariots of Fire won best costume design, which is a movie that I've heard the name and have absolutely no association with, even though it won the Oscar for best picture that year as well.
Yeah, it's funny how an Oscar is considered such a, it's the peak of the mountain, yet it often doesn't really lead to much or amount to much in the long term.
Yeah. I mean, Raiders of the Lost Ark was nominated that year for Best Picture, which is somewhat impressive that it was even, recognized at that level for it being what it is. So never say never with these kind of movies, but I was surprised that it's missing a couple of key nominations that I would have expected, and even some stuff that like Braveheart was nominated for in the year that Braveheart came out. That's probably the comparable movie to this.
Yeah,
right?
Actually, I was getting a lot of Braveheart from this. I would have even maybe kicked it best adapted screenplay because it does take a lot from Mallory. And like, again, okay, if one of my best friends, actually Blake, if you came to me and said, I'm going to tell the whole story of King Arthur in 2 hours and 20 minutes, I'd be like, Blake, you need to calm down. That's a terrible idea. But
yeah, not nominated for that. The thing that did win was On Golden Pond, which is based on a play.
Oh, I do actually really like that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites, actually.
No way. Well,
Didn't
it wasn't
make
in your top 100.
I guess that wasn't that favorite. I used to watch it a lot as a kid with my parents, so...
Katharine Hepburn, Henry Fonda, Jane Fonda.
Yeah, it's a good movie. You'd like it. It's a feel-good movie.
Oh, okay.
Feels good, man.
I don't want to feel good.
I want to feel bad.
There is a couple documentaries about the making of this movie. I couldn't find any of them.
Oh, really?
One of them's supposed to be streaming, but it does. I could not find any copies of them or how I could stream them online. So one of them's called The Making of Excalibur: Myth in a Movie, which is actually Neil Jordan directed that, and he actually filmed on set and was getting interviews in real time as they were making this movie, because it was, this is one of the most important British movies of all time.
Oh yeah, it's hugely expensive, and it did do pretty well.
Yeah, it did very well.
It made a pretty big profit.
Yeah, one of the highest grossing movies of that year for sure.
It also inspired a young Zack Snyder, apparently.
Yeah.
I really like Zack Snyder, the guy. Don't always vibe with his work. His fandom is fucking insane. But that's all I'll say on that.
I'm gonna let that sit out in the air, and you can deal with the fanboys.
Yeah, I will. Come one, come all.
Personal reviews in the partner factor. Again, Jess and I both kind of mixed on this one. Somewhat baffled that a prologue even was needed, but then felt like it did enhance the movie. So, that's pretty good.
It sounds like me, you, and Jess all kind of checked out around the hour 40 mark, specifically with the whole Grail quest thing.
Absolutely.
You know what? I'm just thinking about this now off the top of my head. I feel like if you want to do the Grail quest justice, that needs to be the whole movie.
Yeah.
We need to follow Percival around this wasteland as he looks for that fucking cup.
This is my entire thing, is the movie should have been cut at the, everything's great and the round table has been built and we're all doing awesome, but Lancelot might have the hots for my wife, and Morgana might not be all on board with everything happening, and Merlin has some
Merlin
concerns.
is perfect, actually. There's nothing bad to say about Merlin.
Yeah, I
Or
I
his
really,
Chrome Dome.
yeah, I really think that this movie, especially because it actually comes after The Godfather Part 1 and Part 2,
Yeah.
really could have learned something from those two movies.
Yeah.
And done a rise and fall a little bit better.
I feel like if they'd maybe been able, if he'd maybe, I would love to see this 3-hour cut because it might be a great movie.
Yeah.
But sometimes I did enjoy this movie, but in some ways it's more interesting to talk about than it is to actually watch.
I agree.
Just because there are some truly baffling decisions. On the one hand, though, we got something to talk about, and sometimes that's just as fun. You know, sometimes
sure.
when a movie shits its pants, you're like, "Wow!"
Yeah.
You're almost like you almost applaud because it's just so interesting,
Right.
you know?
Yep. Well, on that note as well, I guess we didn't really talk about this too much. But I did want to say that, like, really with Morgana's plot about overthrowing Arthur or something,
Right.
I just found her her wants, like what her objectives were. I just found everything regarding her completely incoherent.
I guess maybe this is one of those situations where like Morgan Le Fay is a well-known trickster in the mythos.
Yeah.
So it is kind of funny when you look at it, though. It's sort of like, I don't know. It's like, why do you have a beef with Arthur? He didn't do anything.
Right.
I guess she's mad at his dad, or she's so entranced by magic power. But I don't know. It was nice seeing a young Helen Mirren. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, hey,
Yeah.
hello. So,
But yeah, no, I just to me, even reading it, like, so I was trying to read it just in case we wanted to really get into the deep dive of that, and I just found even like this plot summary about her character and what she wanted, needed, and like where her character's arc was. I was like, this is just a mess. Like, this is so incoherent.
yeah. But again, I think that's part of going back to what we're talking about, personal reviews and partner factor. I do like this movie quite a bit. Sarah enjoyed it too. We were both laughing at this movie quite a bit.
So would I.
Yeah,
So was I, for sure.
So I will admit, though, it does kind of lose something after the hour 40.
Yeah.
It does come back for a dramatic conclusion.
Yep.
As baffling as some of that conclusion was. Percival, like, no, I'm not going to throw it, actually. But
he goes back and he's like, hey, man, I'm not going to do it. And he's like, well, go do it. And he's like, all right.
Sorry. Yeah. It's like when your boss tells you to do something stupid and you're like, and then your boss is like, just do it. And you're like, okay. All right, man. So, yeah, I did like this movie quite a bit. It is imperfect, but I think that's kind of what I like about it, is that it's there's something kind of scruffy about it. I also kind of like that it really shot for the stars and it didn't quite get there.
Yeah,
but
I can appreciate that.
I admire the tenacity. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, because we
So-
just don't really get these swings anymore.
No, everything's like designed by committee and like
Yeah.
it's like, you don't get these beautiful failures anymore.
No.
Not even to say that this movie's a complete failure, but
I wouldn't say that at all. I think that there's a lot to like about this. It's just there's some very critical problems that, to fundamentally say that like the last 40 minutes of a movie don't really work is not great.
yeah, that's a tough sell.
Yeah.
That's like saying a third of the movie wasn't great.
Yeah.
But
I was having so much fun for the first hour 40.
Yeah, I get that. So anyways, Excalibur, everybody.
The beautiful mess that is Excalibur.
Yeah, and it is a beautiful mess.
Yeah.
Now when a movie's going off what I said earlier, now when a movie's a mess, it's because like Disney like made them reshoot it 6 times because they couldn't decide what they wanted. So this is a mess just because it had too much heart.
Yeah. Well, I love too that Boorman had like 6 of his family members playing different people in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He had like I think his daughter and his son and maybe his grandkid. And there's a point in time where his daughter plays what's her name? The woman who, or Arthur's mom. That's his daughter.
Ew.
And so he films her getting raped, and they both had to do a lot of interviews about that, and both of them were like, what are you going to say? We're actors, we're directors. That's how it goes.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And she had a line at some point where effectively she was like, once you've been raped on screen in front of your own dad, you can do anything.
I also do like, I'm just looking at this guy's Wikipedia page right now. He was pushing 50 when he made this movie. And like, this feels like a young man's movie.
Right.
It has the energy of a young man's movie. So
Yeah,
like I gotta tip my hat to him in that respect.
You know what though? This is kind of what like Martin Scorsese's doing, kind of stuff like this now.
Yeah.
You know, you do have to get to a certain level of prestige to be trusted with this kind of money.
Yeah.
Is I guess what I'll say, like, or a property of this size, right? Which is funny because before Boorman did this, I was reading about him doing The Exorcist II: The Heretic.
Famously great movie.
Famously the worst exorcism movie, considered one of the worst movies of all time.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is funny because that's the movie he literally did right before this one, or a few years before, because of how long this one took to make. But it was kind of like the one for them, the one for the studio, so that he could make this movie. And then that did so poorly that it, I'm almost a little bit surprised he was allowed to do this.
Yeah, normally, if you have a really big bomb, you kind of get kicked out of Hollywood, right? And stay out.
Yeah.
Did you know that Jonathan? Ooh, how do you pronounce his name?
Demi. Jonathan Angelo. Jonathan D'Angelo.
I think his name's like Jonathan Frakes, like the guy who played Piker in Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm cutting all this out, but
you could keep it in. It's fine.
Yeah, maybe. So, he's kind of taken on a life of his own because he's like through memes, because he did this show in the 90s where he'd introduce things and ask questions. Like, how much would it take for you to spend the night in a cemetery? You clearly have no idea what I'm talking about.
I have no idea.
But he was also a director. He directed a movie in 2002 that was so bad that it basically destroyed his career. And he talks openly about it.
Yeah. I mean, what else are you going to do?
Right. Yeah. That might happen to me one day. Maybe I'll write a book that's so bad that publishers are just like, we're good. Thanks.
We're good. Yeah.
And I'll just be like, well.
Well, and this movie did make a lot of money when it came out. So it's not like his career withered and died after this.
No, like this movie was a big success.
Yeah. I mean, when did Hope and Glory come out? Yeah. Hope and Glory came out in 1987. He was nominated for Best Director for that movie. He was also nominated for Best Director for Deliverance as well. So.
All right. So he did fine.
Yeah.
Talented guy.
Yeah, very talented. I mean, he was knighted. He's 93, still alive.
Wow, he is?
Yeah,
Shit,
he's 93.
Maybe. Oh, hello, Mr. Boorman.
Yeah.
I enjoyed your movie quite a bit.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings, but I don't think it was entirely your fault, if I'm being completely honest. I think you need more time.
Yeah.
So.
Don't we all?
So I guess on that note, we will see you next time. So as always, tell your dad.
Tell your father.
Yes.